Hello everyone. Today we continue to read about Persia. So Asef Bayat grew up in Tehran during the tumultuous 70s, and he wrote a book reflecting on those times. And we will read parts of this wonderful book. For the marginal poor, the revolution remained by and large a practice whose slogans, aims, and ideals appeared distant and detached from their daily concerns and comprehension. They were concerned primarily with those matters that were essential to maintaining their daily survival. They needed concrete and immediate solutions to their problems. Until the last phase of the revolution, the poor in general seemed for the most part silent on the fringe of events. They were not, however, passive. Indeed, they were involved in a parallel struggle to bring about change in their own lives and communities. The disenfranchised were engaged in the kind of struggles that, unlike the revolution, seemed both meaningful and manageable, as well as in bringing about a kind of change no less significant than the one the Islamic Revolution was to bring about. Khaleh Fatimeh, one of the founders of the Halabiabad squatter settlement in South Tehran, is one such actor. Her and her husband's life and their desire to overcome hardship caused them to venture on a long journey. They packed up, taking a chance and settling in a remote and mysterious land where they hoped to begin a new and better life. To escape from the agony of high rent, bills, formal institutions, and the insecurity of dealing with urbanites, they set up their own dwelling in the common state land, more affordable outside the city boundaries. They began a new life raising chickens, goats, and children. As protagonists, however, they were not alone. Others gradually joined them as the years passed. Many came directly from villages or small towns. Some emerged from the nearby overcrowded slums, escaping the hardships associated with the life there. By 1976, 12,000 households were living with Khaleh Fatimeh in the settlement they named Halabiabad. The settlers gradually began to demand security of tenure, improvement of dwelling units, and services ranging from electricity, running water, and sewer systems to social needs such as health centers and transportation. When their demands fell on deaf ears, they resorted to quiet, direct action. They stole electricity from the nearby power poles and obtained water illegally from the main water pipes in the streets. They extended their private domain into the public space of alleyways. They made their living by engaging in diverse activities, chiefly in the unauthorized and underground economy. This kind of work was carried out by and large in the social and physical space of the street corner, the kiosk, basset, or behind wagon and hand trucks. For security, they began to establish community networks, informal associations, and cultural religious groups to compensate for their uprootedness. With the incremental agglomeration of people organized along similar lines, the sector of spontaneous habitation was complete. This quiet encroachment process represents the kind of significant socio-spatial change engendered by people such as Khaleh, but they hardly considered this change and the activities as political. They saw them simply as natural ways to improve. Nevertheless, the political outcome of this change followed before long. It was manifested in the contestation between the poor, who required autonomy, and the state, which granted its power to maintain order and regulate space, time, work, community life, and leisure. This active or participative use of public space, embodied in the poor's initiative to spontaneously take over land space, came into sharp conflict with state control of order. The state's solution was to attempt to eradicate these communities. On the other hand, the tendency of the poor to practice a cultural autonomy flew in the face of the state's intervention in people's ways of life. By the summer and autumn of 1977, the squatter areas had emerged as battlegrounds. The municipality's demolition squads, escorted by hundreds of paramilitary soldiers as well as dozens of bulldozers, trucks, and jeeps, raided the settlements to destroy dwellings and to stop their further expansion. This was not new. And then he has this paragraph about the times it happened before. And the assaults were normally carried out at night when collective resistance against demolition was very difficult, when the residents were either in bed or away from their shelters. The municipal agents would ask people to come out, and the bulldozer would wreck the shanties, leaving behind the rubble of tin, plates, car tires, and mud bricks. Well, yes, observed a resident of Javadia in Tehran. When we got out of the house at night, I saw something and I hope nobody will ever see again. The whole neighborhood had been surrounded by the soldiers. Yes, they had brought 4 bulldozers. They forced everybody out of their homes and then started to demolish them. But the agents went ahead anyway. The man fell and the house collapsed on him, and the woman, as soon as she saw this, fainted and dropped her child. According to a series of reports, hundreds of homes were demolished in Tehran in the autumn of 1977. This involved at least 13 bloody clashes between the squatters and the government forces. At times, the crowd remained shocked and helpless. Other times, confronted with demolition agents, they resorted to every method possible to protect their homes. The squatters attempted to talk the agents out of their plans, pleaded with them, and argued about the immorality of their destructive acts. During or following many attacks, the indignant crowd responded with rage and fury, resorting to clubs, stones, shovels, and whatever was at hand. On many occasions, they ransacked municipality offices, set government cars on fire, and beat up, on a few occasions, even killed the demolition squad agents. During the autumn of 1977, at least 13 major confrontations were reported. These crowd actions did succeed in repelling a number of raids. You see, they wouldn't dare come during the day. They did come once, but on that occasion, people got together and beat them all up. They all ran away, but the head of the Shahriar, the direct district city, could not. The crowd got him and beat him with stones and clubs. Then we put him into a cemetery. The crowd smashed their cars. They also set a couple of the cars on fire, and now the squatters have prepared themselves. They are on guard every night. And so they have this will to rebuild their houses, and their response to the crisis varied according to the political mood of the day, ranging from tenancy reform to the construction of low-income housing, and finally tolerance of settlements. But each and every policy offered the poor new opportunities and leverage to keep their pressure mounting. So it's a very interesting book that complements a lot of the center-focused books about the region. And he has a lot of first-hand material, and I think it's really due to his own upbringing. And he has a lot of interviews too, where he talks about his research, and he also compares it with the Egypt situation. And at first, I even thought he was Egyptian, but he's actually from, the other country. And so, yeah, it's a great book. And he argues land occupation continued independent from both government initiatives and the leadership of the revolution. Earlier troubles in the shanty towns in the summer of 1977 had produced the Shah's decree that the demolition of shanty towns and illegally built homes be discontinued. This in turn led the government in 1977 to lift restrictions on squatting in 16 districts. Squatters such as Hashimabad, Nazarabad, Koi Delaman, Zahirabad, Afsariye, Humayun Shaher, Khaleh Morgi, Yakshiabad, and others were legally allowed to maintain or further construct. However, red tape delayed the process of obtaining building permits. The mere fact of legal authorization legitimized further land takeovers. Illegal housing mushroomed not only in the newly permitted zone, but also beyond them. Some squatters could not distinguish between the authorized and restricted zones and hence went ahead, taking over plots. Others, among them many affluent opportunist development, Besaz or Befarouche, simply ignored the new rules. When confronted with the demolition squads, almost all referred to the royal decree to justify their claims. In South Tehran during October and November 1978, scores of slum dwellers from a list of places took over a plot of roughly 100 acres. The news spread, bringing more people onto the scene. Everybody was looking for a piece of land. They divided the plots by drawing lines with white chalk powder, leaving no room for streets or alleyways. When allocation was complete, each remained responsible for their own plot. They made sure to leave someone on guard on the land. A large number installed national flags on the lots to discourage attacks by government forces. To offset the common threat, they made sure to act collectively in order to maintain their hold over the land. Similar actions continued in the other parts of the capital city and in various other towns until the collapse of the Shah's regime, which triggered yet a new squatters' movement with a larger scale and novel features. It was not until toward the end of the Shah's regime in December 1978 that youth brought the concrete experience of the revolution home into the underclass neighborhoods. The community-based organizations of the Islamic consumer cooperatives and neighborhood councils served as the most effective link between the revolutionaries and the underclass communities. The condition of dual power during the last phase of the revolution characterized the eroding power of the Anshan regime and the mounting authority of the opposition. Demonstrations of millions of people during the holy month of Muharram on December 10th and 11th underscored the regime's vulnerability to the revolutionary movement. The collapse of the military cabinet of Azari, the coming to office of Bakhtiar, and the return of Ayatollah Khomeini from exile in Paris created favorable conditions for the transfer of power. The old administrative and decision-making centers in the cities were relinquishing their power and new organs of authority were emerging. In most urban areas, police authority collapsed and the old city councils gave up authority and the municipalities ceased functioning. Militant youths took control of various provincial towns and cities in Razaiye, Shahpur, Ardabil, Marageh, and Ajabshir in Azarbaijan province, as they did in cities of Gilan province. Setting up committees, the youth mobilized on properties and public amenities. The committees were involved in police functions, maintaining order, administering traffic, welfare activities, food distribution, petroleum rationing, and street sanitation. In a Caspian Sea town, a daily paper in Tehran reported, "The police have withdrawn. They no longer show up on the streets. The town is now controlled by the people. Every night, some 2,000 volunteers are guarding the city." To coordinate their activities, youths have devised secret codes in each district. This situation lasted until the aftermath of the insurrection on February 10th and 11th, 1979. This is the beginning of this really long book, and maybe we will continue since, the situation is tense right now and it's quite interesting. Take care, guys.